Hi, welcome back to Every Kid Can Play podcast. This is Matt Duncan. Today I'm super excited and I get to interview one of my good friends and one of the people that I really worked with real closely for my first 4 years of adapted PE, and I'm super excited to have her. Her name is Marlene Graber, and she just retired last year, but she was our District 501 Autism Consultant for many, many years. So Marlene, thank you for coming on Every Kid Can Play podcast and taking some time out of your grandma life.
Yeah, no grandkids here today.
That's good. So if you would just kind of start off and just kind of talk a little bit about yourself, your journey and education and all that stuff.
Sure. I have I was born and raised in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, a small town right outside of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and my mom was a special ed teacher, so that really got me involved with children with special needs. At that point, education was a very different picture on what you can and can't do, and it was before IDEA started, and so she could really venture out, and she did a lot of special things with her kids, and always involved my sister and myself in that. So those children became a part of our family. So they became very near and dear to me, and always special ed was always in the back of my head. I did go to Augustana College in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and graduated with a music degree in education music, and did teach for a little bit and decided that wasn't for me. From there, I went to Arvada, Colorado, which is a suburb of Denver, and got involved with children with low income needs there. Also worked at a special alternative elementary school there, was a paraprofessional. So my background just has a lot of little bits of here and there, but always involved children of some type or another. I also was a para in Newton, Kansas for infant toddler program, and that really got me back into the special needs. So when my husband and I moved here to Kansas, we both came here for graduate school. And I jumped in at KU and went to the early childhood special education program and graduated there with my master's degree. And then later on, I went and got my certificate in autism from Pittsburgh State. So I've got a little bit of here and there. My work experience is the same way. When I first got my degree, I worked at the Capra Foundation, which was a great experience. Took a leave of absence there, and then worked at the Menninger Foundation for 8 years, which was just phenomenal. Closed down the early childhood program and then became a part of Topeka 501 early childhood special ed program. And from there went into the autism.
Awesome. So my first question is why autism? Like, what drew you to, obviously you worked with a lot of kids with special needs, but what made you decide to kind of go down that path of working with kids with autism?
It was a kind of accidental, wonderful event. Things were changing in the Topeka school district of how we teach our children in the early childhood special ed, and had a lot of frustrations, and I was given all the difficult kids, especially those that, well, I shouldn't say difficult, the ones that took a lot of time and effort and planning, and they were put into my classroom. A lot of kids that were nonverbal with high needs autism. And so when the job became available, then I applied for the job. I had great staff with me at the preschool, with building visual schedules and teaching me and training me how to work with kids with autism, doing a lot of speech and language and sensory and adapting things. And so I had a great foundation for going into the autism.
So, we always have a lot of new special ed teachers that come in with, it's their first year of teaching. They have no experience in special ed. That's how I was when I started. I had no experience in special ed, taught 2 years at Avondale West with no special ed experience. If you have any advice for teachers that are coming into their first year as a special ed teacher, one, what advice would you give them for just general special ed, and then students that then also branching off to if you have working with kids that have autism?
It can be very overwhelming with any kind of child with special needs. So I think the biggest thing is to recognize you cannot and do not know everything. Even after my 25, 26 years of teaching, you just don't know. So it's okay to ask for help. And there are people out there, especially in the Topeka district, there is a lot of support. Ask questions. Ask questions to your teachers beside you. Ask questions to your consultants that come into your building to help support. Ask your principals. It takes a team. It takes a team and the working together to make things work for our students. And especially with the kids with autism, because everybody needs to be on the same page. The consistency is so important. So please ask for help. I would read things that you can find. Ask for good resources. And there are a lot of them out there. I would go to workshops, free workshops, or get on podcasts that are on the internet. But educate yourself, because it is just so important to have that foundation of what you're working with and dealing with on an everyday basis.
Awesome. And then I think
I do have some resources.
there you go. And we'll make sure we'll make sure that they know they can reach out to you. I think one of my favorite things was when we had so many kids that we both shared, and being able to be a part of that team together and being able to figure out what worked for every kid. I mean, I can remember our main one, we put the work system in place for. It took us like 2 years to figure out. At least for me, it took me 2 years to figure out. We finally got something that we're able to work. And I think what you said is it takes a lot of effort, and especially with kids with autism, you might not see changes right away. Wouldn't you agree?
Definitely. And the thing is, if it doesn't work, don't give up. The consistency in trying over and tweaking the idea is just important to making it work. And yeah, don't give up, because these kids are special and there's always something to like about them. Just look for something that you like, because the kids can sense that if you're frustrated or you really don't want to work with them. But yeah, tweak it and just keep trying it over and over again.
And I think definitely
That's what we had to do.
Yeah, for sure. And I think with every kid that I think I've worked with autism, something different works for every kid. I mean, and we always say every kid's different, but I think it's especially for kids with autism where like one time this would work, but we try the exact same thing for another kid and it doesn't work. So kind of just talk about what are some things you can do to like maybe try to figure out that helps get kids to a routine and things put in place.
Right. I really believe in structure that so that you make life very predictable. And there are many, many different ways to make life predictable, whether it be at home, in the community, at school. And one of the ways is with visuals. You know what, when I was consulting, I still came home with visuals in my pocket that I took accidentally from the schools. So they're hard to deal with, and they're easy to lose, and they're hard to manage, and they're time consuming. But visuals are so important, because not only does that help make life predictable for the student, but what I found is it also makes us as staff be more predictable and consistent, which makes life much easier. Now, the visual can look 100 different ways, and that's what I think is the challenge, is to figure out what type of visual works for the student you're working with at the time. And that's why you cannot just use one, say, visual schedule for one child, and then the next child with autism comes along and you use the exact same visual. It has to be set for that particular child. But visuals are a big, big thing for me, and what I really am a proponent of.
Awesome. And then I think we get in that, there's everybody understands the kids that have autism that are low functioning, nonverbal, don't have a lot of communication, and people can understand and process that they have autism more than, I'm gonna, like you helped create the STRIVE program, or kids that are higher functioning and have autism. Kind of talk about the challenging things of trying to get people to realize, these people still have autism, but it might look a lot different than your prototype typical autism.
When the STRIVE classroom was started, it was for those students that academically could perform on grade level or close to grade level, but could not handle being in a general ed classroom with many other students, or the constant change that was happening in those general ed classrooms. And so they would often have meltdowns, behaviors that disrupted the whole classroom. So in the STRIVE classroom now is a safe place for them to go to learn at their own level. And the hope and dream is that they don't stay in that classroom, is that they learn calming strategies, they learn coping strategies, they still get the general ed curriculum so that they will go back to the general ed. That is always the hope there. So oftentimes it feels like it's just pure behavior. Right. And not autism. And I think that is the real hard thing with kids that that are higher functioning, that have pretty good verbal skills. In fact, maybe have incredible verbal skills and are academically okay, but yet they have this behavior. And so it's hard to see it as autism versus behavior. And I go back to those strategies, those visual strategies, and then providing a predictable environment works for behavior kids as well as autism. So why not do it? Why not provide them with the visuals? Why not provide them with the support? Use those same strategies that you would for autism, because it is hard to see the difference. But the autism strategies are good for all. I use autism strategies on my grandkids. It's just good, solid training, and it's good, solid strategies.
Yeah, and I think, when people think visual schedules, they think it's pictures and all this stuff, but a simple visual schedule can be a sheet of paper and tells them what they're doing when and all that stuff too.
Exactly, with those high functioning kids, yeah, there's no reason to make it visual or, it's different every day, just write it out. They read, so yeah, use it at the level that the child is at.
Right.
Yeah, and don't think of it as behavior. I would just think of it as, what strategies do I need to use to get over this hurdle, knowing that they have an autism diagnosis.
Awesome. So I'm going to kind of shift a little bit. We talked a little more kid specific, but one of your main things is you would go into classrooms and help teachers come up with strategies, or paraprofessionals come up with strategies. What is the first thing when you get a referral or whatever, the first time for someone and you walked into a school, what were you looking for? And then kind of talk through that process. How did you try to build that positive relationship so we can get what's best out of every kid?
Well, several questions there. When I went into a classroom on say a referral, I would try to gather some information prior to that. What were the issues that they were having? What kind of strategies had they already tried? If there was any data to see what that was before I went in. And then what specific help were they looking for? Because I found out very early that I could go in and give them suggestions, but if they weren't wanting suggestions, that was just not helping them whatsoever. So I would gather some questions and I would gather some information before I went in. And then one of the things I would look for was that problem behavior, that specific problem behavior that was requested. The other thing, in addition to that, I would look for relationships between that student and other peers and peers with that student, and especially the teachers and the staff. What were the relationships? Because that is so important to me. If that child isn't wanted, or is uncomfortable or making the staff uncomfortable, and so that might heighten the inappropriate behavior you're getting. So I always looked for that relationship between everybody in the classroom. I would look at transitions, how many transitions were there, what was kind of the prep time on those transitions, what kind of structure, because that is kind of downtime. There's a lot of space between being told to line up and actually lining up, and how was that all structured for the particular child. Reinforcements, were they using reinforcements, and what were they with the child?
So
those were the specific things.
Yeah. So how would you approach a teacher and try to present new ideas to someone who, this is their classroom, this is their baby, and it's kind of hard sometimes having somebody who is from the outside coming in and trying to provide suggestions?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it really goes back to that? Are they willing to get the help?
I found, and again, I did it the hard way. When I first started being autism consultant, I just say, you need to do A, B, C, and D, and that didn't work. So through the process of learning, I found out that I had to build a relationship with the student, with the teacher, and the para. And so did my intervention that I wanted to implement happen right away? It didn't. I had to sit back, I had to build a relationship, and I had to start asking some questions. If we did this, would you want some training? If you did this, would you be willing to try this behavior? Would you be able to try this intervention? I'd be willing to come in and do it with you. I'd be coming in to model with you, but starting with that relationship, that teacher knew I would show up when I said I would show up, and that the teacher knew I would do what I said I was going to do, and that took time. So the strategy didn't happen as quickly as I oftentimes would have liked.
Yeah, and
I was called to meetings several times. Yeah, and it's just like the other staff, the support staff, wanted me to just jump in and fix everything, and that it can't happen that way. The team needs to want to do the strategies and want to put in the time and effort.
Right. They call it the microwave success, right? Put it in the microwave and it's done, right? It's more like slow cooking something and seeing it take time and time and time. I know when we worked with our student specifically, he was the one I'm thinking of. It was the first time I've ever heard about structuring PE. Do you feel like pretty much anything? I mean, at some point, do you think there are strategies you can put in place almost everywhere in a classroom to put structures in?
Definitely. There are strategies can be used everywhere. The question is what is your goal for that particular place and time? I think that needs to be asked first. Like with the student you're referring to in PE, you had done some analysis as to what physical things he needed to work on, and the teacher had done, and the PE teacher was very involved too, as to what other skills he needed in order to be successful in PE. And so we worked on those particular skills, and we could put strategies in. And so I think, whether it be recess or walking in the hallway or eating in the cafeteria, yes, strategies can be put in everywhere, and actually should be, because the strategies will help the student be more independent, and the sooner we do that, the more independent they can be as an adult.
Yeah, and one of the best things was when it was working in PE, then the special ed team decided, well, we could do this in other areas too, and it just really, you could really see that kid blossom.
Right, and it took a lot of time, and it took a lot of staff, and it took a lot of effort in trial and error, but it was a great team, and so we had incredible success. It was a lot of fun.
It was. This is one of my highlights for sure as an adapted PE teacher. All right, so we're just going to do some fun, maybe a few other questions here to wrap this up. I won't keep you too long, let you get back out to your garden. So the first one is, I posted on Facebook about, if you could ask anybody with autism training, what question would you ask them? And the only one I got about was, we're in this COVID-19 thing going on, fall's coming in. We have a lot of kids that have sensory needs and concerns that are going to be starting school. What are some suggestions you have? Like, say we have to wear masks or we have to socially distance ourselves. Do you have any suggestions from your bucket of knowledge you could provide?
Wow. And that is a great question, and a difficult question. I don't. Some kids just are not going to be able to do it. I think that there will be a number of kids that will not be able to tolerate a mask. But I think if that is a possibility, I would start trying different types of masks. I would be just trying to introduce them, even if you're just talking about them, or making a mask, or have somebody make a mask with something that they love on it. Say if they love trains, have a train mask, or another theme that your child might like, that might make it more likely that they would wear it. But I think you're going to have to do a lot of desensitizing and trying it on over and over and over. And it's not too early to start that.
Yeah, and I think you could also possibly just do reinforcement. You do it for 10 seconds, you get a Skittle, or, you wear it for so long.
Oh, definitely. First you wear it, and using timers. Please use timers so that they know exactly when they can take that off if it is very offensive to them, and build up that tolerance to it. You might try some different types of, if it doesn't work around the ears, whether you need to go all the way around the back, or different types of fasteners, different types of fabric. So there's going to be, again, trial and error, and then practice.
Awesome. If you could pick one memory from your 25 years of teaching that was your favorite, what would it be?
Well, the person we were talking about will forever be in my memory, where we structured PE. I think a lot of times students with autism cannot handle PE because it is very unpredictable. But this child was so interesting because he liked the unpredictability of the activity and disliked the predictability of the warm-up exercises, which were the same every single time. So it was a very unique situation. And he liked all the chaos and the noise and the running around. So he's just very different from most kids with autism. But I love the program we set up, and it was successful. And then we tried to carry it out also in middle school, which wasn't quite as successful, but he really made huge improvements on being able to tolerate, and the success. I will always remember this student. Yeah, he's special in many ways.
Yes, very so. And if he's in a very happy mood, he was definitely one of my favorites. he's
Mm-hmm.
all a joy when he's in a good mood. And then I think also, you know, and people that are listening, you know, you're one of the main people that helped me program our sensory area for our field day with our occupational therapists. And I definitely could not have
Mm-hmm.
done it without you, because that was definitely something I had no idea what I was doing. And I think what you talked about, asking for help and stuff like that, you know, I knew that was not my area of expertise, but that was definitely one of my highlights, is having
Yeah.
you on part of the team and helping us develop that from the ground up.
Yeah. That, and I have my T-shirt on.
Yep, I was gonna say, it has a good T-shirt.
I don't know if you can see it.
Yep.
I do want to, before we leave, I have some free resources that are just top-notch resources that are free for anybody, if we have time for that.
Yep. Go ahead. And then if you would send those to me in an email, I'll make sure I
Okay.
attach them to this podcast.
Okay. There are two people that I have followed on Facebook, and then they do blogs. One is Sasha Long at Autism Helper. And you just go to Sasha Long at Autism Helper and just join her group. And she is constantly doing new feeds of great strategies. The other one is Christine Reeves. She does a lot on Teacher Pay Teachers. She creates a lot of stuff. And of course, on Teachers Pay Teachers, she charges. She does on her website do discounts and some other things, but also does a lot of information, just general information for autism. Then 3 online freebies are TASN, T-A-S-N, which is our Kansas State free training, and I use them a lot as a consultant, but they do a lot of podcasts, they do a lot of online training, even before COVID-19, that you can just sign up and join in on. So then there are 2 modules, 2 resources, and one is called Ocali, O-C-A-L-I, and they have autism internet modules. I love this because they do pre-tests and post-tests, and you watch it, and they're just really top-notch information. And then the other one is Affirm, A-F-I-R-M, and again, just top-notch information that you can listen to. And each one of the Ocali and Affirm have broken down into different types of strategies, so you can just click on one and get the information for that specific strategy. So all free. All you need to do is, for some of them, create a password and log in, and that is it. And you can get all the information, good information on autism. And I will send those to you.
Appreciate it. All right, you ready for some rapid fire into the podcast questions to wrap this up?
Oh, I'll try. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
These are all fun ones. Okay. Favorite song? You're flipping through the radio station and this song comes on and you have to stop and listen to it.
You know, I hate to say it, but Guns N' Roses, Sweet Child of Mine. I love that song. It's just good dancing, good singing. I love that song.
Awesome. Favorite hobby to do outside? Now that you're retired, favorite hobby to do? Outside.
I have many outside. Okay, gardening. We have huge vegetable gardens. We have more food than we can eat. And then I've really gotten into flowers. And because I live on 23 acres here out in the hills, I am now taking cedar trees and making structures and trellises. And my flowers are growing in all these structures that I have made with my cedar trees. It's been lots of fun.
Sounds fun. If you could give one piece of advice to a parent who just got a diagnosis from somebody with autism. I know this is kind of off my favorite questions, but if a parent has just got the diagnosis that their son or daughter have autism, what would you say the first thing they need to do?
I would say find help. Find other people who have been through the same situation. Find a support setting. The parent support group does not exist anymore in Topeka, but there are a couple Facebook pages that you can ask to join in specific to Topeka. And so you can ask your questions and you can find somebody, but connect with somebody who understands what you're going through.
Awesome. And then the last one is, if you could pick any book for me to read, what would it be?
Pick any book? Does it have to be on educational? No? I just finished a whole series. It's like 17 books, some murder mysteries and stuff like that. It's First Lady Detective Agency by Alex McCall Smith, and just fun, easy, fun reading. You can just breeze through them and just very, very entertaining.
That's awesome. I've been trying to keep my mind busy while I've been stuck at home. I'm sure you're doing the same thing. Marlene, I appreciate you. I love you to death. I definitely would not have been successful in physical education and adapted P without your help and support and your friendship. So appreciate everything.
I appreciate you too. Thank you, Matt.
Everybody, this has been Every Kid Can Play podcast. Reminder, every kid deserves the right to play. We'll see you next time.